Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're doing great and following the 3 H's of the channel, which are happy, healthy, and hydrated. And as for what's in this video, I have a feeling you already know what you're getting into here, but I got stories from northern Quebec, from Italy, from the US, and more. If that sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a stump with me and let's jump into it. Thank you for watching. So this happened to me on June 27th, 2016. It was around 9:30 p.m., and this is in the northwest of Italy, right near the Alps on the French border. I was coming back from work in a summer camp that's surrounded by woods. There's only one road that connects the camp to the nearest town, and it's about 5 or 6 kilometers downhill. I missed the last bus to go home. And worse still, I had no cell signal, so I was hoping that there was a bus in the town that could bring me to where I live. I have less than an hour to catch it, and I have to walk 5 to 6 kilometers. But instead of following the road, I decide to take a shortcut, and while doing so, I end up walking pretty far in the woods on a dirt track that was used by the partisans in World War II. At first, there's some daylight, but soon it gets very, very dark. I turn on my phone's flashlight. It's a peaceful night. There's no sounds, except some night birds, cicadas, and of course, the steps on the track. Then suddenly, I hear a crack in the bushes. There are no big predators here. Wolves left these mountains many, many years ago, but I forgot about boars. I freeze. I wait a couple minutes, and I don't hear anything further. I decide to keep walking. Shortly after, there's another crack, and then another, and then a screech of a small animal dying, and then total silence. I turn my flashlight toward the bushes, and suddenly, 2 yellow eyes appear on the track, and then a small, gray humanoid creature, not taller than 30 centimeters, hairless and extremely skinny. It walks sideways, keeping eye contact. I can't move a muscle. I'm breathing heavily in utter terror. It carries a dead rabbit covered in blood by the ears, and then runs to the other side of the track. I absolutely freak out, and I sprint, reaching the town as fast as I can. I don't know what it was. What could it be? So I've never really witnessed anything strange myself, but one of my friends told me this story like 15 years ago. I'll write it out in English, hopefully without errors. So his uncle lived in the Ticino Natural Park, a really nice green area surrounding the Ticino River between Lombardia and Piedmont regions. This is in northern Italy. I don't remember the right spot. I only remember that it was near the airport, right under the plane's descent path. He lived in a house quite far from urban areas, surrounded by trees and woods. He enjoyed watching airplanes passing by outside his porch in the late evening, and would always continue into the early night, always at the same time. But one summer night, the usual flow of airplanes passing through the corridor above his house suddenly, abruptly stopped. He immediately found it a strange occurrence, since this had never happened at all before. And suddenly, everything goes really quiet, and then a black triangle shows up, passing right above his house. It had lights on. It passed really low and was completely silent, no engine noise at all. It silently hovered past the trees surrounding his house and well, and 10 minutes later, air traffic comes back to life and starts to pass through regularly. That zone has always been a hotbed for UFO sightings, especially in the past. The latest flap happened around 1997. I wonder if the nearby Cameri military airport has something to do with it. So I'm a game warden way up in northern Quebec, and this happened quite a few years ago. It was late September. I was sleeping at my workplace since it was so remote. My shift ends at around 4 p.m. I decide to head back into the small town to have dinner with my parents, who were visiting at a local motel. It's about 40 kilometers to the south. I leave my female coworker there. She tells me that when I come back later in the evening, she'll be gone to her dad's cabin that is somewhat nearby, since her shift ends at 9 p.m., and that she'll leave the back door unlocked for me. So fast forward to later that night when I'm on my way back. It's about 30 kilometers of paved road and then 17 kilometers of an old gravel logging road to my outpost. I arrive there around 10 p.m. Of course, my co-worker is gone and I'm all alone out here. It's pitch black outside. I park my car. I get out. The air around the camp reeks like shit. I ask myself a few questions, and I feel puzzled. I get into the camp, put some firewood into the stove, turn on the TV, and try to go to bed. Now before, we've had bad smells around this area, and it's always been bears. But this ended up being a little different, for the reason that when I woke up that next morning, I go outside to stretch my legs before my coworker comes back, and what I find still sticks with me. All over the back door were muddy handprints, and the weirdest part about them was that the fingers were unusually long, and besides that, there were only 3 fingers and a thumb. Nothing that peculiar has happened before or since that night. I don't think I'll ever know what it was, nor do I really want to know. From allnurses.com, one nurse shares her experience with a dying patient who was more than what he seemed. According to the nurse, the patient suffered from a variety of ailments that could end his life at any time. However, the man was terrified of death and raged at the nurses to keep him alive. Every time his heart monitor beeped, he would go into a rage, screaming, "Don't let me die. Don't let me die." We soon found out why he didn't want to die. One night, this patient took a turn for the worst, and the nurse rushed into his room with emergency supplies. However, she wasn't prepared for what she found. This man was sitting 2 inches above the bed and was laughing. His whole look had completely changed. His eyes had a look of pure evil, and he had this evil grin on his face. He laughed at us and said, "You stupid bitches aren't going to let me die, are you?" Seconds after this, the man went into cardiac arrest and died 20 minutes later. 5 minutes after, the patient was pronounced dead by a doctor. The newly deceased man sat up in bed and started to laugh, saying, "You let him die. Too bad." And then, all throughout the unit, we heard an agonizing scream, and you could hear, "Don't let me die," whispered throughout the unit. Every one of the nurses that night was pale and scared. Nobody went anywhere by themselves. By morning, the whispers of "Don't let me die" were finally gone. I had a near-death experience when I was very young. To this day, it's why I personally believe in God. Everything that happened was similar to what adults experienced, but it happened at a time before I was socialized to know what happens after death, or really know anything about anything. I was that young. Thus, the predisposition theory kind of goes out the window there. Long story short, I had the flu, a bad one, and I almost died. I woke up covered in my own vomit. Presumably, I died from asphyxiation. 3 angels came down. Their presence felt like family. It was like I was siblings or cousins or parents with them. They told me to not be afraid and to go with them. I was really scared at first and tried to hide under my covers, but they told me that God sent them to take me somewhere fun and loving and great. I eventually went with them. We flew out of my window toward a great light, almost like a portal of sorts in the sky. As it got closer and closer, I looked back towards my house, which at this point was a speck on the ground. I got really scared, and I was holding the hand of one angel, but went to hug him. He stopped along with the others and asked me, without really saying words, if something was wrong. All I thought was that I didn't want to leave my mom behind. I had lost my dad at a young age, and I didn't want to leave my mom like he did when he died. The angel said that it was okay to be scared, and that I had a choice. If I went with them, I would be happy, loved, and comfortable with God. I looked through the portal. It was like light, pure light, colors I'd never seen, colors similar to blues and greens, reds and purples, and of course, shades of gold and yellow. It looked fun. It felt warm and safe. I wanted to go, so we went a little closer, but the worst heartbreak I have ever felt came over me, and all I could think about was how much I loved my mom, and I couldn't leave her alone. And I asked if God would let me stay with her so she wouldn't be sad like when my dad died. I remember the angel smiling at me and saying that God would be happy to let me go back. I felt sad about leaving the light, but I felt an overwhelming need to go back to my mom. We quickly began floating towards my home again, towards my window. I got a glimpse of my body, and everything got really, really slow and overwhelming. A white light took over my vision, and like a clash of lightning or a crash of a percussive cymbal, I woke up. I shot up in my bed. I looked around for the angels, but saw none. I started calling out for my mom, who ran into my room and saw that I was covered in vomit. She cleaned me up and told me not to worry and held me close. I was crying hysterically, but not because of the mess, but because I was so relieved to be with her again. God is real. Yes, I'm Christian, but I don't claim to have all the answers. Whether God is the Abrahamic God that dominates the worldview today, or simply a guiding force, or power in the universe that guides all life, there is something on the other side. Be a good person. Live as selflessly as possible. Pray, meditate, do good works, and something beautiful awaits us. So I had this experience back in 2013, and I'm not really sure what to classify it as. So I was a teenager, and I was living in the country with my parents. Our house was about 50 yards from the forest. We have few neighbors, but there's no one close enough, so it's not super important to what happened. Basically, the only importance of that is to say that there's sometimes people around for about a half a mile into the woods. After that, no one lives there, and no one goes there. And at that time, I had a big red quad, a Polaris 850 twin. It was a beautiful machine. I would go for rides, usually only a few miles in, so I don't get lost. I always take my 22 with me, and my German Shepherd, Mustang. Mustang was a big dog, even for a German Shepherd. He was pretty chill though, and he doesn't get scared that easily. He never even really barks at complete strangers, just stares them down. So, one Saturday morning, I've had no chores to do because my dad was out on a business trip, and my mom had gone to work. My siblings were at daycare. I got to stay home. I take my dad's hunting GPS and sneak off with his newer gun. I don't remember what it was called, but we don't have it anymore. It kinda looked like the semi-auto Axis infantry rifle from one of the really old Call of Duty games. There were 3 magazines with it, and some more ammo in this little back compartment on the quad. So I head off into the woods with a pack full of snacks, water, and a GPS. Mustang always follows me. I can never get him to stay home. I go down my usual trail. Nothing unusual happens. It's still pretty early, like 11:30. 2 hours of riding into the woods. I'm just checking stuff out, and I stop to shoot at this big strange bird. It was kind of far away, and the gun's a little bigger than I'm used to. I fire, and I end up missing hard, and it hits a tree. So I start my noisy-ass quad back up again. I ride off into the woods more. My gas is fine, but I decide to turn back once it gets to about half, since I brought extra. I screw around some more in the woods. I eat a sandwich that I made for myself, and I give the rest to my dog. And then I hear yelling. I can't quite make out what it's saying, or what it even really sounds like. It's so far off, but it sounds mad, almost like my dad when he loses his temper and yells at me. I think maybe it's some loggers. I know better than to check it out, because I could be trespassing on logging company land and not know, so I just go the other way, and I end up in a part of the woods I've never seen before. I end up going to the end of this really long trail, and I keep going because I have a quad tank, so I didn't really care. I go off into the unknown and go for a while more. I see a lot of cool forest stuff. Everything is really nice and really green. The tree cover is super thick, so there's not a whole lot of light that's coming down through the trees, but the visibility is still okay. I stop again to check out this huge tree, and then I hear the same yelling. This time, I know I heard something. There's no way it's loggers. I'm miles away from that now. I'm spooked. For a second, I think maybe it's my dad looking for me, and I'm in trouble. But then I remember that he's on a business trip in Brazil. I decide my mind is just playing tricks on me. And then I hear my dad's voice call my name. I'm frozen solid. The voice is getting closer, and then I hear it again. Tyler, come here. I feel like I'm losing it. I'm at DEFCON 1, a lockdown state. That's not my dad. The last part of it sounded like it was almost like my mom saying it. I know that's my mom. I know that's my dad. It can't be both, so it must not be either. All of this was within 3 seconds. I think of my assets here. I have a rifle on the back, a pack attached to the quad, a GPS in my pack. I have a good memory, but once I get off my own trail, I won't make it home fast enough. I run over, turn on the GPS, and put it in my pocket while turning the quad back on. Just then, as I'm tearing out, Mustang starts freaking out. He comes in, maximum thrusters, barking, growling, doing shit that I've never seen him do. And then, a smell hits me like a truck. It smells like old decaying animal feces and a rotting animal. I almost puke. I hold it down, and I peel out of there with my gut absolutely wrenching. I'm going fast as hell and get into a clearer area so I can slow down and look at my GPS. I slow to a stop. The GPS is calculating my route, but it's taking a lot longer than I would like it to. And then, Mustang is coming toward me. He's whimpering now, but he's still sprinting. I've never seen this lazy dog run this fast. The smell hits again, and then I hear it. Tyler, come here. And the way it came out sounded so inhuman that it was almost like a video game. Or maybe that's just my brain's way of trying to find something to compare it to. And just as the smell hits, the route is finally calculated. I goose the quad, spitting shit behind me and out of there, onto the trail. I continue to go as fast as I can down the trail. I keep looking back for Mustang in case something happens to him, so I can shoot whatever's getting him. Then I peel off into the logging road. I know where I am, but I keep going. I'm almost to the end of the road, so I can cut through the trail that I know and get in a paved road to get back to my house faster. And then the quad stops. I freak out. I'm looking at everything, and then I realize it's the gas. So I scramble to get my gas tank off the back and into the quad. And then it feels like that nothing I do is fast enough. Mustang runs up and stops beside me and whimpers and looks at me. I say, "I know, buddy, I know." As I'm filling it up, I start to hear something in the woods, so I guess that's enough gas. It's about 1/5 full, and I'm thanking God that I actually brought extra gas with me. As I'm putting the cap on, I begin to smell that awful, putrid smell. I start the quad and peel out again. I'm going through the woods at record speeds. I get on the road at record time, and Mustang is right there with me, doing his best. I get up to 60, and I slow down. For him, I have to keep an eye on him. We're riding down the road. I pull into my driveway and into the garage so hard that I end up crashing into the paint cans, but at this point, I don't care. I hold the garage door open for Mustang and close it as soon as he gets in. He knows not to come inside because we don't really like him to, but I pull him in by his collar and lock the garage door. I get inside the house and I make sure that all the doors and windows are blinded. I grab my dad's .44 and load Eagle Claw rounds into it. I pull Mustang into the only room I can think of that will be safe from anything. Mustang and I are huddled together, locked in the bathroom, with me crying, holding a .44 Magnum. My mom came home and found me hours later. I never went that far into those woods ever again. I never saw what it was, but I get the feeling that it's like what people say a skinwalker is, but I don't know anything about it other than that. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please like and subscribe and comment and share and all that great stuff. And if you've already done that, then you're way ahead of the game. And as always, I am eternally grateful to all of you for watching these videos and staying with me as long as you have. I see some people have been subscribed for like 4 years, and to me that's crazy. And I thought about in the future doing like a third video some weeks of just like crazy articles or crazy news that are related to the channel, and just kind of going over that stuff and talking about it. If you would like to see something like that, then let me know. I've thought about it, and maybe it would be fun to do depending on how it goes. But don't worry, the crazy stories are not going to stop. And if you've made it this far in the video, then thank you. And with that, I will see you in the next one. I have a PayPal and a Patreon in the description if you would like to donate to the channel. There's super thanks here on YouTube. You can send your story to the email in the description. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for pulling up a stump, and thanks for watching.